WrestleMania IX has always been one of my favorites, right? And for years, ever since this little thing called the internet, social media, that's when I learned that a lot of people didn't like it. Now, it's very special to me. I've defended this show, whether it's been to Dwayne, Hugh, and Brandon right here on the Wrestling Realm, to the masses, to people I run into in person. I've been defending WrestleMania IX, but WWE made a documentary, and I'm going to talk about it, give my quick thoughts, and prove to everyone I was right all along. Coming up on this episode of Break It Down with Brian H. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, tax season is upon us. Perhaps you missed the deadline. Well, I want to recommend Sophie's Tax Prep. You know, if you're looking for accounting and financial services, tax preparation services, or refund loan up to $7,000, this is the place you need to be. And guess what? You can handle this all virtually. Sophie's Tax Prep offers comprehensive tax preparation services to individuals and businesses and is currently accepting new clients. Reach out at 443-526-1360 or info@stpenterprises.com. Like I said, you can handle this all virtually.
No, baby, that's for somebody else. We're just going to keep you right where you're at right now.
It doesn't matter what you think.
The Wrestling Realm presents Break It Down with Brian H.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Break It Down with Brian H. I'm your host, Brian H. Waters. This show, of course, is brought to you by the Wrestling Realm. Folks, WrestleMania week is here. It's the pinnacle of all sports entertainment. You know, WrestleMania 38 was the most stupendous. WrestleMania 40 felt like it was XL, the biggest of all time. This one has a different feeling. I feel like it's a transition, a change of the guard. You know what I mean? Kind of like 31, maybe even 21-11. We all know about that, you know. But I'm here to talk about one of my favorite WrestleManias, WrestleMania IX. Now, if you've been following the Wrestling Realm as we coming up on 15 years, actually this is year 14, next year will be 15, but if you've been following us this whole time, you know that I love this show. I've had one of the first interviews on this channel was with the Head Shrinkers, two people who were part of this show, but you know that I have affinity for this show, and I'm here to kind of talk about what I watched in this documentary. The biggest thing, right? The biggest selling point that everybody wanted to talk about is the finish. Hulk Hogan walks out of WrestleMania IX after not being scheduled for the main event as the brand new WWE champion. And all people on the internet always say, Hogan screwed Bret. Hogan shouldn't have did that. Why did they do that? That was stupid. I thought it was a crazy finish. Bull hockey. Here's why. And I always say this, I take you back to my 6-year-old self. This is the first show that my parents ordered. They called up, back you had to call, we had TCI cable, I think it was, but you had to call them, or United Artists. You had to call them up, order the show, and they ordered it. This was the first WrestleMania they ordered for me. Now, we had ordered, I thought about it. They did order Survivor Series 92, but this is the one where, first WrestleMania party, the boy up the street, shout out to JP. I haven't seen him in over 30-something years. But yeah, I remember him coming down, me and my sister Megan. We watched the show, and man, oh man, what an incredible time. And I remember like the end, and Bret Hart loses. I'm upset because, at this time, I was upset that Yokozuna won the Royal Rumble by throwing out Macho Man. And then I'm upset that he beat Bret Hart. Bret Hart's my guy. Disappointed Money Inc. And Hogan and Beefcake, the Mega Maniacs, didn't leave as tag team champions. But now Bret's going to lose the title. Like, both of my guys are losing. Well, all of a sudden, here comes Hulk Hogan. He saves the day. Bret, go get the belt. Go get the belt. Hogan goes in there, accepts the challenge. Boom. Y'all know the story. Now, I always say, At that time, as a child, it was the greatest thing to happen. One hero loses, the other hero comes to save the day. Now, here's what this documentary taught me. What I learned was that, ticket sales just wasn't what it was. So I started thinking, because I've actually watched this 3 times, 2.5, right? Full disclosure, I started watching it. And my lady, shout out to Queen PR, was like, oh, so you just watched it a while ago? I was like, I'm watching it for work. And she goes, well, okay, fine, go ahead and watch it. I was like, I know what that means. So I turned it on. We watched it later and watched it all the way through. And somebody who wasn't watching wrestling at the time had only learned about WrestleMania IX through the book. Yeah, I'm talking about you, babe. Learned about WrestleMania IX through Bret Hart's book. Said, wow, I see a different perspective. And I said, watch this with an open mind, because you'll learn that the ticket sales were down. They promised this big show, and they said Hogan wasn't going to be there because he had no intention of being there. Well, he came to promote the movie, and then guess what happened? The tickets were still down. Hogan comes back. They go through the roof. The presentation changed. Now, people want to say Bret Hart got screwed. Here's the reality, folks. Bret Hart was not leaving Las Vegas as the WWE champion. If you look at it, because if he was, he would have got it back. The plan was to go to Yokozuna. Hogan has said in his books that he reminded Vince, are you really going to send the fans home unhappy after a WrestleMania? This would have been the first time a heel walked. If you don't believe me, WrestleMania 1, Hogan and Mr. T won. Hogan, number 2, 3, Hogan wins. 4, Savage. 5, 6. Well, 5, Hogan. 6, Ultimate Warrior. Good guy. 7 and 8, Hogan closes the show. So we were looking at the first time. Now, mind you, this is WrestleMania IX. The first time a heel left as champion and closed the show was WrestleMania 2000 with Triple H, which Brian Gewirtz has gone on record and said he's argued with Vince about. It was an argument at WrestleMania 2000. I can't remember if he specifically said on record that it was him arguing about The Rock not winning, but putting 2 and 2 together, I know that's what I would have been arguing. So when you look at that side, right, and everybody always wanted to talk about, well, Hogan should have left. Well, if Yokozuna wins, because Yokozuna went on a monster run, only for the belt to come back to Bret Hart the next year. Now, Bret said he was upset because Vince promised him a lengthy title reign, 5 or 6 years. He brought up names like Backlund and Bruno. Well, business changed. I honestly don't think a Bret Hart lengthy title run, you're talking 93 to 99. That sounds crazy considering the way television was. There wasn't as much television there. And the idea was to use TV to drive people to the arena, where now WWE gets to Monday Night Raw. It's weekly ratings, weekly television. Would Bret Hart have evolved during that time, right? Or, we're going into the Attitude Era. We're going into the Jackass era. Probably, what probably would have happened? People would have got bored. So I don't see that happening anyway, but I can understand why he was upset. So, that's why I said, I don't like the notion that Bret Hart got screwed. If you want to say Yokozuna got screwed, I can understand that better. But guess what? He won it at the King of the Ring. So Yokozuna looks like a bigger star because he beat Bret Hart and he beat Hulk Hogan for his 2 world championships. And then you look at the rest of the card, right? Just the theatrics. Like I said, the outside, it was the first WrestleMania that felt like, wow. You know what I mean? Considering. Now, you did have it inside and indoor places, bigger arenas, but the spectacle of it all, the entrances, you know what I mean? It wasn't just, okay, we're going to start the show. No, you had the announcers come down on togas, the world's largest toga party. And the real Dwayne Allen likes to say they put it in a parking lot. Which is true. They made something out of nothing. Guess what? They did the same thing. They took WrestleMania 24, put it in a swamper stadium that everybody said was garbage until WWE did something great with it. But also, you go back and watch the matches. Tatanka and Shawn Michaels, good match. Head Shrinkers and Steiner Brothers, good match. Doink the Clown versus Crush. You got to have been there. You got to remember that story. Doink making the little girl cry. That's an image that always lives in my head rent free. I remember that being a child, him taking his arm off out of the socket, a fake arm, and beating Crush with it. beat him until he knocked him out. And then an illusion, 2 doinks. You know, now Backlund and Bob Backlund and Razor Ramon left a lot to be desired, but guess what? Backlund got his first WrestleMania. You know, so I thought overall it was a great documentary. I still stand by. This is one of my favorite shows of all time. You know, you had Undertaker and the Giant Gonzalez, but at that time, again, being a child, seeing the Giant Gonzalez come out, seeing like, whoa, this guy took down the Undertaker, and Jim Ross was phenomenal in his first night in WWE. He said, I've seen him put a lot of bodies on stretchers, but I've never seen him on one. Talk about the Undertaker, you know, and then Undertaker rises up, comes back. That's solidified just to show you what you would get from that character. You know, now Perfect and the narcissist Lex Luger. Yeah, I didn't like the match as a child because Mr. Perfect lost, but you know, here Mr. Perfect was forgetting spots, you know. Now, IRS and Ted DiBiase, Money Inc. versus the Mega Maniacs. It's, you know, it's Brutus Beefcake. It's old Hogan, you know. And you know, and when I talk about Hulk Hogan, I'm not talking about this guy who's running around Trump. Like, I'm always talking about me in that moment as a child. You know, I enjoyed the match. I enjoy watching this. I've watched this show probably 150, probably 200-300 times. So I know almost the commentary by heart. You know, but I think it gets a bad rap because of the internet. I think the internet loves to talk about it, but it's not the worst WrestleMania. You know, now 11 is in my famous 5 tapes y'all heard me talk about, and I'll say that was just felt like a regular show. It felt like, you know, the next day, the month after WrestleMania 11 was the debut of WWF in your house. You could play both of them. You're not going to feel like you're watching something different outside of the America the Beautiful. You know, and the celebrities, but you're not going to really feel like you're watching something different. But I love how the documentary is put together where they go through the show and then they go through each match. And you really see, like I said, it wasn't as bad of a show, but it was innovative. It was the first spectacle. And I am so excited as I get ready, as I'm recording this on Tuesday. I'll be in Vegas. So if you're out there, you in Vegas, come see me, say hi, you know, make sure you check out everything on this platform. But I wanted to do my quick recap. And before I go, you know, it's been a very rough couple of weeks, just full transparency. So I lost 2 women who were very dear to my heart. Y'all may know I played drums, gospel quartet music for over 20 years and played for a group, Eddie Williams and Family Connection. And the matriarch of the group, Linda Williams, passed away last week. So, you know, my heart goes out to Eddie Williams, her husband, and then my brothers and sisters, Kimmy, Janelle, Maurice, Evelyn, and Shelton. You know, Linda took me in and, you know, just somebody who was, always the life of the party and added me on. It's like, oh, my other son, you know. And then this week, as of yesterday, as I'm recording on the Tuesday, my godmother, Laurel, passed away, you know, and I will say unexpectedly because, you know, I just saw her Sunday and I got a chance to, you know, talk to her, tell her I love her, and I just thought she was going to get better. But the man above, the big man above, God said, you know, he was ready for her to come home. And, you know, you hear about me talk about my god brother a lot. Shout out to Michael, Marlon, and Sammy. I love you, brothers. You hear me talk about them and, their dad. Shout out to Sammy, Mr. Sammy, Big Sam. But like my god brothers, they were the brothers I didn't have growing up because I would go over there and watch wrestling. And she would, you know, allow that, you know, getting the pay-per-views, the wrestling video games, you know, they are important to me being here, you know. So I had to pay a tribute to them and a shout out, you know, and spread love to the family. But as I get ready to close out, man, y'all know, follow me at Brian H. Waters on all social media platforms. Subscribe to the Wrestling Realm, and make sure, you know, show love for everybody. And if you're in Las Vegas, come holler at me. Until the next time, folks, so long, everybody.